Ryan opened his eyes slowly, his vision blurry at first. A soft light filtered in through what looked like a glass roof. He blinked several times, trying to focus. The air smelled fresh, slightly sweet and cool. His body felt stiff, heavy, and strange. He tried to move, but his limbs resisted. For a moment, panic rose in him. Where was he? How had he gotten here? The room around him was unfamiliar. Tall walls of metal and glass were covered with green vines, curling and twisting like they had been growing for centuries. Broken machines lay scattered on the floor. Their screens were dark and wires spilled out like the roots of dead trees. Dust coated everything, and in the corners tiny plants had begun to grow. It was beautiful in a strange, lonely way. Ryan took a cautious step forward. The floor was cold but solid. He bent down and touched the ground, feeling the smooth metal under his fingers, now cracked and worn with time. He tried to remember what had happened, but his mind was empty. He could not recall any past memory. He only felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. Slowly, he made his way to the nearest window. The glass was cracked, but still mostly clear. Outside, a city stretched endlessly. The streets were empty. Cars lay rusted and broken, some half buried in grass and soil. Buildings that had once been tall and strong now leaned and cracked under the weight of vines and trees. Windows were shattered and plants grew inside offices and homes. The city was silent. Too silent. Ryan stepped outside, careful not to trip on the uneven ground. The sun was warm on his face. The sky was bright blue and clouds drifted lazily. Birds flew overhead, their songs echoing in the empty streets. He saw squirrels darting among broken signs and deer cautiously walking through what had once been a busy market square. He froze for a moment watching the deer. It looked at him with calm eyes as if it had seen him before but did not care. Then it turned and disappeared into a nearby forest that had grown over the road. Ryan felt an odd mix of emotions. Relief because nothing was attacking him. Loneliness because there was no one else. Wonder because the world had changed so much. But most of all, he felt curiosity. He wanted to know what had happened, how the world had become like this, and why he was here. He wandered through the streets. Cracked roads were lined with trees that had grown taller than the streetlights. Buildings leaned in strange ways, and vines crawled across their walls. Cars long dead were rusted and tangled in roots. Ryan could see shops that had been abandoned, their signs faded by time. He touched the doors and felt the worn wood under his fingers. No one had been here for a long time. How long? He did not know. Then a small device in his pocket beeped softly. He almost dropped it in surprise. It was a small square object with a glowing screen. He pressed it and numbers appeared. 15,000 years. Ryan could not believe it at first. Could it be true? Could humans really have disappeared 15,000 years ago? He looked around, realizing that everything he saw, broken machines, empty streets, wild animals, might have grown and changed over millennia. He felt a shiver run down his spine. 15,000 years was a time almost impossible to imagine. He kept walking. The city felt both familiar and alien. Some buildings had shapes he remembered from old images in books or films he could not fully recall. Yet nature had completely taken over. Grass pushed through cracks in the road. Flowers grew on rooftops. Trees grew tall enough to touch the sky. Rivers, which had once been narrow and confined, now flowed freely through streets and parks. Fish swam in water that ran where cars had once driven. Ryan's curiosity led him to a library, a large building with broken doors and windows. He entered carefully, stepping over fallen beams and piles of dust. Inside, the smell of old paper and earth filled the air. Books were scattered on the floor, their pages yellowed but still readable. He picked one up and opened it. The words told stories of people long gone, of cities filled with life, and of mistakes that had led to the fall of humanity. He learned that humans had fought wars, polluted the earth, and ignored warnings from scientists. Slowly, over centuries, human civilization had collapsed. Nature had reclaimed the world. Animals had returned. Forests had grown where cities once stood. Rivers and lakes had cleaned themselves. The planet had healed, but humanity had vanished. Ryan closed the book and walked through the library. Sunlight streamed through broken windows, illuminating dust particles that floated in the air. He felt a sense of sadness for what had been lost, but also awe for what remained. The earth was alive, and it seemed to be waiting for someone or something to care for it again. He stepped outside again, walking along streets that twisted like rivers of stone. The silence was complete except for the sounds of nature. Birds, insects, water, and wind were the only companions he had. For a moment, Ryan felt fear. What if he was truly alone? But then he realized something. He was not truly alone. He had the Earth itself, and in a strange way, that was enough. Ryan climbed a tall building to see the city from above. The view was breathtaking. Streets twisted through forests. Rivers sparkled in sunlight. Mountains rose in the distance. Everywhere he looked, life had returned. Humans were gone, but the Earth was alive and thriving. The city was no longer a place of noise and chaos. It was a garden, a world of peace and quiet beauty. As he descended the building, he found a small garden growing in the ruins of an office. Flowers bloomed, birds nested, and insects flew busily. He touched a flower gently, amazed that it had grown without anyone caring for it. He felt a strange connection to the past, to the humans who had once walked this world, and to the life that continued despite their absence. Ryan realized that he had a choice. He could wander endlessly, searching for answers, or he could begin to understand this new world and find a place in it. He chose the second. He would explore, learn, and survive. Perhaps he could even help the Earth continue to grow. He spent the first night in a small building that had once been a school. The roof had fallen in some places, but he found a dry corner. He built a small fire using old wood and twigs. The light flickered on the walls, casting shadows that danced among the vines and dust. He ate some dried fruits he found in the remains of a cafeteria. It was not much, but it was enough. As night fell, Ryan looked at the stars. They were the same stars humans had seen long ago, but somehow they seemed brighter, clearer, as if time itself had polished them. He felt small yet connected to everything. The Earth was alive, and he was awake in a world that had waited for him. Ryan whispered to himself, "I am here. I am awake, and I will learn this world." Sleep came slowly, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Ryan rested. The wind outside sang through broken windows. Trees swayed gently. The world was alive, and he was part of it now. The adventure of discovery was just beginning, and he felt ready for it no matter what challenges awaited him in this empty yet full Earth. Ryan woke early, the sun spilling light through the broken roof of the abandoned school. Birds were already singing outside, and the soft rustle of leaves filled the air. He stretched, feeling the stiffness in his limbs from the day before, but the energy inside him was stronger. Today he decided he would explore more. Not just the streets around the school, but the heart of the city that seemed frozen in time. He stepped outside, feeling the warm sun on his skin. The streets were empty, but alive in another way. Grass pushed up through cracks in the asphalt. Flowers bloomed in impossible colors among the ruins. Trees had grown tall, some even taller than the buildings they had once neighbored. A fox crossed the street quickly, pausing for a moment to watch him with bright, intelligent eyes before disappearing into the forest that crept closer with each passing year. Ryan walked slowly, careful not to trip over the uneven ground. Every step he took revealed more of this quiet, strange city. Shops were open but empty. Windows hung broken on their hinges. Posters faded to nothing clung to walls, whispering stories of a time when humans had filled the streets with noise and life. He bent down and ran his fingers over a cracked counter, imagining the people who had once worked there. He could almost hear their laughter, their voices, but it vanished when the wind shifted. He found himself in a library, a massive building with tall shelves and collapsed ceilings. Sunlight streamed through holes, illuminating dust floating in the air like tiny stars. Books lay scattered across the floor, some open, some closed, some piled in corners. Ryan carefully picked up a book. Its pages were yellowed and delicate. The words told stories of humans, of their inventions, their mistakes, their joys, and their losses. As he read, he realized that the humans who had come before him had been much like himself, curious, hopeful, and flawed. They had built a world full of knowledge and art, but they had also fought, destroyed, and sometimes ignored the warnings that nature had given. Slowly over time, their civilization had crumbled. The Earth, left to itself, had begun to heal. Rivers flowed where pollution had once been. Forests spread where cities had been abandoned. Animals had returned and thrived. Ryan closed the book and walked through the library, feeling a strange sadness. Yet there was also a sense of hope. The humans were gone, but the Earth had survived, stronger and more beautiful than before. For the first time since he had woken, Ryan felt a connection, not only to the humans who had lived here, but to the life that now filled the world. He stepped outside again, moving carefully through streets that twisted like rivers of stone. A small creek ran through the middle of what had once been a busy road, clear and full of fish. Flowers grew along its banks. Birds swooped low, dipping into the water. Ryan knelt and touched the cool water, feeling the life that pulsed beneath the surface. The city was silent of humans, but it was not dead. Life had returned in ways that humans could never control. Trees had grown tall in plazas. Vines climbed the walls of once grand buildings. Insects and birds moved freely. Even the air felt alive, carrying scents of flowers, earth, and water. Ryan climbed a crumbling building to get a better view. From above, the city was breathtaking. Streets disappeared under green canopies. Parks had become forests. Rivers ran freely, cutting new paths. The rooftops were gardens of wildflowers and shrubs. He could see animals moving across the landscape, deer, foxes, and even a lone wolf pacing along a riverbank. He realized that the city had changed not because humans had shaped it, but because nature had taken over. For the first time, he understood the power of the earth to heal and grow. 15,000 years had passed since humans fell, and still the planet had not stopped moving, living, breathing. Ryan returned to the streets. He walked through what had once been a market square. Broken stalls were overgrown with moss and vines. He imagined the people who had once sold fruits, vegetables, and goods here. He thought of their laughter and chatter, their hands exchanging coins, their lives intertwined with one another. Now, only the wind moved through the square, carrying the soft scent of wildflowers and damp earth. He found a small garden in the remains of a building that had collapsed. Flowers grew tall and bright, and bees buzzed busily. Ryan knelt, gently touching the petals of a flower. He felt a strange connection, almost as if the life in this garden had been waiting for someone to notice it. Perhaps it had been waiting for him. Ryan began to explore the outskirts of the city. He walked along crumbling highways that had once connected towns and cities. Nature had completely taken over. Trees grew in the middle of roads. Vines and moss covered bridges. Rivers had carved new paths through concrete and steel. Animals roamed freely, sometimes stopping to watch him with curious eyes before moving on. He discovered a small grove of trees near an old playground. Rusted swings swayed in the wind. The slide was bent and broken, but grass and flowers covered the ground beneath it. Ryan smiled. Even in the ruins of human play, life found a way. As the day passed, Ryan found a tall, abandoned office building. The doors were heavy, but he managed to push them open. Inside, dust and sunlight mingled. The floors were littered with papers and books, some still readable. He climbed a stairway to the top floor. From there, he could see the city stretching endlessly, merging with forests and rivers beyond. The view made him feel small but alive. Ryan realized he was beginning to understand the world. Humans were gone, but Earth was full of life. Animals, plants, rivers, mountains, they all existed without humans to control them. The planet was free, and it had become stronger. The silence of humanity was not emptiness, it was opportunity. At sunset, Ryan sat on a broken rooftop, watching the sky turn shades of orange, pink, and purple. The wind carried the scent of flowers and earth. Birds returned to nests in tall trees. The rivers glinted in the fading light. He felt peaceful yet determined. He wanted to learn everything about this world. He wanted to understand its patterns, its secrets, and its past. Night came, and Ryan found a small shelter in the remains of a collapsed building. He made a simple bed from fallen furniture and old cloth. Outside, the sounds of nature continued, crickets, owls, and the distant calls of animals traveling through the forests. He felt connected to everything around him. He was not alone, even if no humans were here. Earth itself was alive, and he was part of it. As he lay down, he thought about the humans who had once lived here. He imagined their joys, their struggles, and their mistakes. He understood that they had tried and failed, but the world had continued. He whispered to the night, "I will learn your story, Earth. I will watch over you, and I will discover your secrets." Sleep came slowly, but Ryan welcomed it. Tomorrow he would explore farther. He would follow the rivers, the forests, and the mountains. He would meet the animals, learn from the ruins, and uncover the history of humanity's fall. The world was quiet now, but he could feel it breathing, moving, alive. And he would be ready to walk through it, awake, curious and unafraid. For the first time, Ryan felt a sense of purpose. He had woken to an empty Earth, but it was not truly empty. Life surrounded him, and he was part of it. 15,000 years had passed since humanity's fall, but in that silence, Ryan knew the world had found a new beginning, and he would find his place in it. Ryan woke to the gentle rustling of leaves and the soft songs of birds. The sun painted the city in golden light. Today he felt a new excitement stirring within him. Yesterday he had explored the streets, seen how nature had reclaimed the city, and felt the quiet power of life around him. Today he wanted to go deeper. He wanted to uncover the secrets of the humans who had once ruled this earth, and to understand how the planet had survived their absence. He wandered toward the outskirts of the city, where buildings leaned precariously and vines stretched thick across their walls. The streets were cracked and overgrown. In some places, grass and small trees had broken through the asphalt, and water ran freely where storm drains had long failed. Ryan followed the sound of running water, thinking it might lead to something important. After walking for some time, he stumbled upon a hidden entrance to an old laboratory. The door was partially open and faint sunlight illuminated broken panels inside. Ryan pushed it fully open, stepping carefully over twisted metal and shattered glass. The air smelled faintly of old machinery, mixed with the earthy scent of plants that had grown inside. Inside, the laboratory was a strange mix of science and decay. Machines that had once hummed with energy now lay still. Papers, maps, and broken devices littered the floors. Some monitors flickered weakly, powered by small solar panels that still captured the sunlight from above. It was as if the laboratory had been waiting, frozen in time, for someone to come. Ryan moved through the lab slowly, examining everything. He found recording devices still intact. With a trembling hand, he activated one. A soft voice filled the room. It was human but faint, speaking of experiments, discoveries, and warnings. The voice spoke of climate changes, wars, and diseases. It spoke of mistakes humans had made and how they had tried to save the Earth, but often too late. Ryan listened carefully, realizing he was hearing the echoes of a world long gone. He found a map of the Earth pinned to a wall. It was old and faded, but still clear. Red markings showed areas destroyed by human activity, while green markings indicated regions where nature had begun to reclaim the land. Rivers had changed courses, forests had grown, and animals had returned to places that had been cities. Ryan studied the map for hours, tracing the paths of rivers and forests, imagining the world before and after the fall. In a corner of the lab, Ryan discovered a small, carefully maintained garden. Jars of seeds sat on shelves, labeled with names he did not recognize. Some were for plants that had once fed humans. Others were for trees, flowers, and crops that had been cultivated for centuries. He touched the jars gently, feeling a strange connection to the humans who had cared for this small pocket of life so long ago. Ryan realized something important. The Earth had been ready to survive without humans. Even in the ruins, the seeds, the maps, and the machines had been left to continue. The planet had healed itself slowly, quietly, waiting for someone or something to notice and care for it. Perhaps now he could be that caretaker. He spent hours exploring the laboratory. Old machines still contained small amounts of power. He learned to operate some of them, using sunlight to create light and small amounts of energy to power devices. One machine showed recordings of human life, cities, celebrations, and ordinary days. Ryan watched silently, imagining the people who had walked those streets, laughed in those homes, and lived full lives. He felt both sadness and awe. Humans were gone, but their memory lingered in the tools, the seeds, and the stories they left behind. After leaving the laboratory, Ryan continued his exploration. He followed the rivers that now ran through the city, noticing how they had changed the landscape. Buildings once towering now had water flowing through their foundations. Bridges were broken, yet nature had built around them. Fish swam freely and birds nested on top of the structures. He realized that the city had become part of the Earth itself. Humans had vanished, but life had adapted, survived, and thrived. Ryan climbed a tall hill outside the city to get a wider view. The horizon stretched endlessly, showing forests, rivers, mountains, and valleys. Everywhere he looked, life had returned. Nature was no longer confined to parks or fields. It had taken over completely. The Earth was alive, free from the constraints humans had once imposed. The silence of humanity was profound, but it was filled with the energy of growth, renewal, and life itself. He found an old journal in the laboratory during his previous exploration. It had belonged to a scientist who had studied the changes in the world. Ryan read about the efforts humans had made to protect the planet, how they had tried to stop wars and pollution, and how they had ultimately failed. Yet the journal did not end in despair. The scientist had written about hope. Hope that life would continue, hope that the Earth would survive, hope that someone might one day appreciate the planet's beauty again. Ryan felt a deep sense of responsibility. He was alone, yes, but the Earth was not empty. Animals, plants, rivers, and mountains surrounded him. The planet had survived 15,000 years without humans, but now that he was awake, perhaps he could help it even more. Perhaps he could become a guardian, learning from the past and protecting the life that remained. As the day passed, Ryan discovered ruins of other buildings, each telling a story of the humans who had once lived there. Factories, homes, schools, and markets all had been overtaken by nature. Trees grew through walls, vines climbed staircases, and rivers ran through streets that had once been crowded with people. He realized that humans had left marks on the world, but nature had rewritten them, creating a new balance, a new harmony. Ryan found a small grove where animals gathered. Deer grazed quietly and birds flew low among the trees. A fox approached him cautiously, sniffing the air before darting back into the forest. For the first time, Ryan felt that he was part of this world, not an intruder. The animals did not fear him. He was not a threat. He was simply another living being in a world that had grown strong without humans. He spent the night near a river, building a small shelter from fallen branches and leaves. The sound of the flowing water was soothing, and the air smelled of flowers and damp earth. Ryan reflected on what he had learned. Humans had been powerful, creative, and flawed. They had built amazing things, but they had also destroyed much. Yet the earth had endured, healed, and grown stronger. Ryan understood that he could not bring humans back, but he could honor their memory by learning from their mistakes and by caring for the life that remained. He decided that he would travel farther, uncover more of the planet's secrets, and protect the creatures, plants, and rivers that had survived. As he lay down to sleep, he looked up at the stars. They were bright and clear, more vivid than he had ever imagined. Each one seemed to tell a story not just of humans, but of the earth itself. He whispered to the night, "I will learn from you. I will protect you. I will walk with you always." For the first time, Ryan felt a true sense of purpose. The world had survived without humans, but it was now his turn to live in it, to explore it, and to care for it. The city was silent yet full of life, and in that silence, Ryan found a new beginning. Ryan woke with the first light of dawn, the soft glow of the sun spilling over the horizon. Birds sang loudly, and the wind carried the scent of flowers and wet soil. Each morning felt like a gift, a new chance to explore this world he had woken to. Today he decided to travel beyond the city. He wanted to see how far nature had stretched its reach and what secrets the earth still held. He packed a small bag with food he had gathered, water from the river, and some items he had found in the laboratory, tools, maps, and a journal. He left the city behind, stepping carefully through the forests that had grown over roads and streets. Trees leaned over paths like guardians, and vines formed natural arches above him. Birds flitted from branch to branch, their songs guiding him like a compass. As he walked, Ryan noticed signs of animals everywhere. Deer tracks led to a nearby stream. Squirrels darted between trees. A fox watched him from a distance, curious but cautious. The earth felt alive in a way he had never imagined. The planet had healed itself over thousands of years, and now life was thriving without humans. Ryan discovered an old bridge, half covered with moss and vines. Below, the river ran clear and strong, cutting through the forest. Fish swam in its depths, and water birds perched on fallen logs. He paused, kneeling by the water to drink. The river was pure, untouched by pollution or human interference. It reminded him that the earth was resilient, capable of restoring balance when left alone. After crossing the bridge, Ryan found the ruins of a small village. The houses were broken, but nature had transformed them. Trees grew through roofs and flowers covered the streets. Birds nested in chimneys and animals moved freely between the buildings. He imagined the people who had lived here, their daily lives, and the love and laughter that had once filled these homes. Though they were gone, the earth carried their story in the shapes of their buildings and the seeds they had planted. He continued his journey and reached the edge of a forest that stretched farther than he had ever seen. Sunlight filtered through thick branches, creating patterns of light and shadow on the ground. The air was cool and fresh. Ryan felt a deep connection to this place, as if the forest itself recognized him as a part of its life. Walking through the forest, he found plants he had never seen before. Some were bright and colorful, while others were strange in shape, their leaves curling in unusual ways. He collected a few seeds, placing them carefully in his bag. He wanted to learn about them, to understand the ways in which life had adapted and evolved over thousands of years without humans. Ryan came across a clearing where animals gathered. Deer grazed on soft grass, birds swooped low, and a fox approached, observing him quietly. He sat down at the edge of the clearing, watching the animals. They did not fear him. They accepted his presence as natural. For the first time, he felt truly connected to the life around him. The earth was no longer just a place. It was a community of living beings, and he was a part of it. As the day grew warmer, Ryan discovered an old observatory on a hill. Its dome was cracked and vines had crept through the walls, but inside it still held the remnants of human knowledge. Telescopes pointed toward the sky. Charts of stars and planets covered the walls, and books lay scattered across tables. Ryan studied the charts, realizing that humans had once looked to the stars as he did now, searching for answers beyond their world. He spent hours examining the observatory, learning about the patterns of stars, the phases of the moon, and the positions of the planets. Though humans were gone, their curiosity and knowledge remained, waiting for someone to discover it. Ryan felt a sense of continuity, as if he were connected to the generations of humans who had once walked the earth and looked up at the same sky. After leaving the observatory, Ryan traveled to a river valley. The water was deep and clear, surrounded by tall cliffs covered in trees. Fish swam in schools and birds nested along the cliffs. The valley was untouched, wild, and beautiful. He decided to rest there for the night, setting up a small camp with a fire made from fallen branches. As night fell, the stars filled the sky. The Milky Way stretched across the horizon like a river of light. Ryan sat quietly, listening to the sounds of the valley. The wind rustled through the trees, the river gurgled over stones, and animals moved unseen in the darkness. He realized that he was not alone. He was part of this world, and the world was part of him. Ryan thought about humanity's fall. He remembered the stories from the library and the laboratory, the warnings humans had ignored and the mistakes they had made. Yet he also thought about the Earth's resilience. Life had survived. Nature had thrived. The planet had healed itself over thousands of years. Ryan understood that the world was strong, and he had a role to play in protecting it. He decided to travel farther each day, exploring new valleys, forests, and rivers. He wanted to learn the patterns of the land, the behavior of animals, and the secrets hidden in the ruins of human civilization. Each discovery brought him closer to understanding the Earth and his place within it. In the following days, Ryan found a hidden grove filled with flowers that glowed faintly at night. Fireflies danced among the blooms, creating a magical light. He stayed there for a time, observing the delicate balance of life. The grove seemed almost untouched, a sanctuary where the earth had preserved its beauty. Ryan felt privileged to witness it. He also encountered new challenges. Rivers had changed course, and old paths were blocked by fallen trees or overgrown vegetation. Predators lurked in the forests, though none threatened him directly. He learned to move quietly, to observe without disturbing, and to respect the natural world around him. Each day he became more skilled at living in harmony with the earth. Ryan discovered small animals that had adapted to the changes in the environment. Birds with unusual plumage, insects that glowed in the dark, and fish that thrived in rivers no longer controlled by humans. Every creature told a story of adaptation and survival. He collected notes, sketches, and seeds, determined to understand the new world fully. One morning, he came across a valley where the ruins of an old city lay beneath a forest canopy. Buildings were completely overgrown. Vines climbed every wall and trees grew through the streets. Animals roamed freely, from deer to foxes to wild goats. Ryan walked carefully, marveling at the way life had reclaimed the human world. The valley felt sacred, a reminder that the earth could heal itself if given time. He spent the night in the valley, setting up camp near a small waterfall. The sound of cascading water filled the air, blending with the rustle of leaves and the distant calls of animals. Rian looked up at the stars and thought about the future. He knew he could not bring humans back, but he could learn from their past, protect what remained, and help the Earth continue to thrive. Rian understood that he had become a part of something greater. He was not merely surviving. He was contributing to the world in his own way. By exploring, learning, and respecting the life around him, he was becoming a guardian of the Earth. The planet had survived without humans, but now it had him. As he drifted to sleep under the night sky, Rian felt a sense of peace he had never known before. The Earth was alive, full of beauty, mystery, and life. The cities of humans were gone, but the forests, rivers, animals, and stars remained. He was awake in a world reborn, and he would walk its paths, explore its secrets, and protect its wonders. Tomorrow he would continue his journey, discovering new lands, meeting new creatures, and learning the hidden stories of a world that had survived humanity's fall. He was no longer alone, for the Earth itself was his companion. And together they would continue, alive, resilient, and eternal. Rian woke with the dawn, the soft golden light of the sun spilling over the hills and forests. Birds sang their morning songs, and the air carried the sweet scent of flowers and damp earth. He stretched, feeling stronger than ever. Over the years, he had learned to move quietly, to live with the rhythm of nature, and to understand the Earth as no human could. He was no longer just a traveler. He had become a part of this world. Today, he decided to explore a valley he had noticed from a distance. It was untouched, hidden behind tall cliffs and thick forests. He wanted to see what mysteries it held, what life had thrived there, and what secrets might be waiting for him. Packing his bag with supplies, dried fruits, seeds, water, and tools, he set off through the dense forest. Sunlight filtered through the trees, creating patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor. Every step brought him closer to the unknown, and he felt excitement in his heart. The journey was not easy. Fallen trees blocked paths, rivers had changed course, and the forest was dense with undergrowth. But Rian had learned patience. He observed the animals around him, watched the movements of birds and foxes, and followed natural trails through the trees. The forest was alive, and every movement told a story. He felt a deep connection to it, as if it guided him toward the valley he sought. After several hours, he reached the hidden valley. It was breathtaking. A wide river ran through the middle, its waters sparkling in the sunlight. Hills and cliffs surrounded the valley, covered in thick forests. Flowers and plants grew in abundance. Birds nested in the trees, and animals moved freely without fear. It was a world untouched by humans, a sanctuary where life thrived in every corner. Rian walked carefully, observing the valley. He noticed small animals digging in the soil, insects pollinating flowers, and fish swimming in the river. He realized this was one of the purest places he had ever seen. It was a reminder that life could survive, adapt, and flourish even after humans had disappeared. He felt a sense of peace, but also responsibility. This world was beautiful, but it needed care, someone to observe and protect it. He knew he could be that someone. He explored the valley further and found a small cave near the river. It was dry, protected from the wind, and overlooked the water. Rian decided it would be his home. He cleared a space inside, setting up a simple bed of leaves and soft moss. He placed tools, seeds, and books he had collected over the years near the entrance. This would be his base, a place from which he could explore and learn. Over the next days, Rian began planting small gardens in the valley. He grew flowers, vegetables, and trees, carefully observing which plants thrived and which struggled. Birds came to the gardens, insects buzzed among the flowers, and small animals grazed nearby. Rian learned to live in harmony with all the creatures around him. He did not take more than he needed. He gave water where it was scarce and helped seeds grow in shaded areas. Slowly, the valley began to flourish even more under his care. Rian also explored further beyond the valley, mapping the forests, rivers, and hills. He discovered other hidden places, small groves, clear streams, and animal paths. He recorded what he found in his journal, drawing maps and noting the plants and creatures he observed. His journal became a guide not only for himself but for the future. He imagined that someday, someone or something might read it and learn how the Earth had survived, how it had healed, and how life had continued. One day, he came across a small herd of deer drinking from the river. They looked at him cautiously, but Rian remained still. Slowly, they accepted his presence, and he watched them quietly. He realized that animals did not need humans to survive, but they appreciated kindness and care. He smiled, understanding that his role was not to control, but to guide and protect. Rian continued to explore every corner of the valley. He discovered waterfalls, hidden caves, and dense forests filled with life. Birds sang melodies he had never heard before. Small mammals scurried through undergrowth, and insects danced in the sunlight. He felt joy at every discovery, amazement at the resilience of life, and gratitude for the opportunity to witness it all. As seasons changed, Rian grew more in tune with the earth. He learned to read the weather, follow the migration patterns of animals, and predict the growth of plants. He became skilled in surviving in the wild, using natural resources wisely and respecting the balance of life around him. The valley became a haven, not only for him but for the creatures that lived there. It was a world thriving in harmony, and Rian was its guardian. Rian also reflected on humanity. He remembered the books, journals, and recordings he had found in cities, libraries, and laboratories. Humans had been creative, intelligent, and full of curiosity, but they had also been careless, fighting wars and ignoring the warnings of nature. Their time had ended, but their story remained. Rian realized that while humans were gone, their knowledge and mistakes could teach him lessons. He would not repeat their errors. He would live in balance with the world. One evening, as the sun set behind the cliffs, Rian stood on a hill overlooking the valley. The sky was painted in shades of orange, pink, and purple. The river glowed like liquid gold. Birds returned to their nests and animals settled in the undergrowth. He felt a profound connection to the earth, stronger than he had ever felt before. He was part of this world, and it was part of him. He whispered to the night, "I will remember you. I will protect you. I will walk with you always." The words felt true, not only for the valley but for the entire earth. He understood that even though humanity was gone, life continued, and it was his responsibility to honor it. Over the following years, Rian continued to care for the valley and explore beyond it. He planted forests, restored streams, and watched animals thrive. He learned to build simple shelters using natural materials and created small tools to help him in his work. The valley became a sanctuary not only for him, but for countless species that had returned to the land. Rian felt a deep sense of purpose. He was no longer just a survivor. He was a keeper of the earth. The silence of humanity was no longer empty. It was filled with life, stories, and the possibility of a future that respected and cherished the planet. He understood that while humans had vanished, life had not, and he would ensure it continued. One night, while sitting under the stars, Rian thought about the journey that had brought him here. From waking in a ruined city to exploring forests, rivers, and hidden valleys, he had seen the world transform. He had witnessed the strength of nature, the return of life, and the beauty of a planet unbound by human hands, and now he had found his place within it. Rian realized that the earth had given him a gift, the chance to be part of something greater than himself. He had learned patience, respect, and harmony. He had discovered the resilience of life and the wisdom of living in balance. He had become a guardian, a student, and a friend to the planet. As he lay down to sleep, the sounds of the valley surrounded him. The river flowed gently. The wind whispered through the trees, and animals moved quietly in the undergrowth. The stars above shone brightly, as if approving his place in this world. Rian closed his eyes, feeling peace, purpose, and hope. He knew that the earth would continue to grow, to heal, and to thrive long after he was gone. But for now he was awake, alive and ready to walk its paths, to learn its secrets and to protect its wonders. He was not alone. Nature was his companion, life was his guide, and the planet itself had made him its keeper. The world had ended once, with humanity's fall. But in that silence, life had returned, and Rian, awake in this new age, would ensure that the earth remained full of wonder, thriving in balance and alive for generations to come. He had found his home, his purpose, and his place in the story of the planet, and in that knowledge he finally felt complete.